Ahoy, folks, we are back. Thank you for joining us as we continue the countdown of the 100 scariest wrestlers of all time. It's a labor of love, really. You won't find any ghosts or ghouls or goblins here, just scary wrestlers. Just two pieces of business before we continue the countdown. First and foremost, begging you to like and subscribe right here. And now, before we get into it, let's see where we've been already. Those 10 were pretty scary. What do we have next? Let's find out. Number 90, Pentagon Jr. Born a day before me on February 5th, 1985. Hey, I can't find his real name anywhere. Guess it's omitted. But I do know he was born in Veracruz, Mexico. But on record, he has at least two younger brothers who are also professional wrestlers. Also been known by the name Dark Dragon, El Hayo del Cochillo, Penta El Zero, Penta Oscuro, Pentagon Dark, Pentagon El Om, Pentagon Jr, and Zayas. Are we sure this isn't Diddy under this mask? Pentagon has been at it since 2007, mainly in Mexico, of course, but was also featured on the show Lucha Underground, and from there was pretty prominent on the indies, also had a run in Impact Wrestling, pretty much everywhere, and recently he's landed in All Elite Wrestling since 2019. Number 89, The Natural Disasters. Yeah, I lumped him in as one entry, so sue me. I reserve the right to do that whenever I see fit on this list. John Tenta was around the WWF at the time as the Earthquake. An interesting fact, this team actually kind of weirdly started as an angle where Jimmy Hart was trying to get Andre the Giant to team with Earthquake. Well, Tugboat turned into Typhoon, hence The Natural Disasters. Almost a half a ton between the two guys. Both were legendary and infamous big man performers in one way or another. Team was short-lived. John Tenta went on to be a Shark as well as Golga. Typhoon went on to be the Shockmaster and gave us what's probably the most viral moment in all of wrestling history, even though it happened way before things went viral, but that's a whole other thing. Team split up in early 1993, but hey, interesting fun fact, they did kind of semi-reunite at WrestleMania 17 in the gimmick Battle Royal. Although Typhoon was in his Tugboat gimmick, they were still in the ring together at the same time. Would have been cool to actually see a reunion at some point. We lost Tenta some years ago, but Fred Ottman, Cody Rhodes' uncle, still remains strong. And here in the year 2023, he's ages 67. Number 88, Sami Callahan. Callahan started his career on the indies back in 2006. Used to bump around with a guy named John Moxley all the time. You ever heard of him? Worked hard on the indies for about 7 years before getting a semi-big break with Ring of Honor. It was short-lived, however. The WWE finally got a look at him in 2012. In 2013, he signed a developmental contract where they turned him into Solomon Crow. He spent 3 years in the developmental system, and things were looking good, and then all of a sudden in 2015, he was released. He mainly makes the list here, even though he's not your traditional scary wrestler. He has that loose cannon attitude, and also a dangerous look on the inside and outside of the ring. He's done some stuff. I mean, just look at him. He's not like the other kids. Number 87, Giant Gonzalez. Jorge Gonzalez came to us all the way from Argentina. Jorge was an Argentine basketball player who got drafted by the Atlanta Hawks in 1988. Long story short, didn't work out with the Hawks, but he was in the Atlanta area, which was the same area as, you guessed it, World Championship Wrestling. So some way, somehow, he ended up getting his foot in the door there as just this huge giant. And they tried to put the square peg in the round hole and try to make this guy a wrestler. They brought him in as Elegante in 1989. By the end of 1992, WCW decided that there was no hope for the guy, but he did land on his feet and ended up with the job in the WWF, and they repackaged him as Giant Gonzalez. Elegante was a light-hearted giant. Giant Gonzalez was packaged as anything but. The guy was a savage and pretty intimidating for his size. But apparently Vince McMahon didn't think he was muscular enough, so he drafted up a bodysuit for him to wear that was made of naked muscles. Naked muscles. That was literally all the first suit had. And then someone said, hey Vince, maybe we should put a little bit of fur on it or something to kind of cover up some things. And thankfully they settled in on that. I always think back to WrestleMania 9 and when he put The Undertaker under the chloroform and we thought that Undertaker was dead basically, but I mean, come on, he was already dead. Sadly, we lost Jorge in 2010 at the young age of just 44 years old. Number 86, Yokozuna, famously a member of the Anawahi family, you know, like the tribal chief. He was born in 1966. He started getting his feet wet sometime around 1984 at his first big appearance for Jim Crockett Promotions in 1987, did not debut for the WWE until 1992, where despite his Polynesian descent, he was marketed as a Japanese sumo wrestler. The guy got up to almost 600 pounds at one point, very intimidating, very scary, and was a huge player for the WWE in 1993-1994. Sadly, we lost him all the way back in the year 2000, and he was only aged 34 years old. Number 85, Spellbinder / Fantasio. Harry Del Rios first started appearing for the USWA in around 1993. Here he wrestled as the Spellbinder, and with his face paint was pretty intimidating, pretty scary. And since the USWA had a working relationship with the WWE, and he would be used on WWE TV every now and then, more often than not appearing as Fantasio, which was some sort of wrestling magician. It's like he took his Spellbinder gimmick and just kind of turned the creepy up a notch. And then you have Fantasio. This is another one where it's like, yeah, it's kind of goofy, but also kind of scary at the same time. You know, because he's a freaky magician. I don't trust any magicians. You ever seen Chris Angel? About that one guy, that David Blaine, tell me he's not creepy. I mean, magicians are just scary. Enough said. Number 84, Gold Dust. The year was 1996, and then this came onto your screen. I think a lot of people were scared of it in one way or another. Either scared in the traditional sense or scared about how it made them feel. Either way, I think it did its job. Dustin Rhodes, famous son of Dusty Rhodes, Runnels, if you will. He was tired of playing son of a legend, so he and the WWE used the opportunity of him coming aboard to completely reinvent him and basically make him unrecognizable as Gold Dust. The gimmick crossed many boundaries for the time and definitely scared a lot of children. Somehow he was able to drag it out and be more and more bizarre over almost a 3-year time span. Then went to WCW, which we'll cover later, seemingly though always finding himself back in WWE as Gold Dust, and in later years the character would be much more lighthearted. Number 83, Prince Albert / Tenzai. Prince Albert, aka Matt Bloom, aka Lord Tenzai, began wrestling in 1997 and was a fixture of the global indie scene before being discovered by WWE and being brought in around 1998. That's where Prince Albert was born. This version of himself, scary enough, and oh yeah, all that hair. The hair alone was enough to give you nightmares. He hung out in WWE for 6 years under different variations of the same gimmick. They finally let him go in 2005, and from there he went to Japan where he was kind of a big deal, and based off of his success there as a monster, WWE decided to give him another shot, repackaged him as Lord Tenzai, a very menacing and intimidating monster, but it was nothing that we hadn't seen before, and soon WWE gave up on it and rebranded him into a comedy character with Brodus Clay as part of the Tons of Funk tag team. Go figure. Number 82, the Head Shrinker. They started teaming up in 1987 as the Samoan SWAT team, first in Puerto Rico, then in World Class, before finally ending up in World Championship Wrestling in the early 90s. Their most famous run probably though was with WWE as the Head Shrinkers. They came in 1992. Eventually, Samu was replaced by Sione, aka the Barbarian, who we already had on this list. Crazy, savage Samoans. It can be a pretty scary thing. Number 81, the Zodiac. Ah yes, Ed Leslie, the man of 1,000 gimmicks. Billed as Hulk Hogan's brother early in his career. Caught on with the WWE in 1984 as he was Brutus Beefcake. In 1987, they turned him into a barber. And when he went to WCW in 1994, he was known as the Butcher. And when the Three Faces of Fear eventually turned into the Dungeon of Doom, he was then rebranded once again as this gimmick known as the Zodiac. I mean, just take a look at this guy. You tell me that might not give you a nightmare a time or two? And what was even worse is the name, the Zodiac, which was very freaky in of itself. Spooky name plus spooky face paint equals one of the 100 scariest wrestlers of all time. In this case, number 81. Congratulations, Ed Leslie. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this installment. I'll get another one of these out as soon as I can. Please consider subscribing and leave a like on your way out. And the next video will give you another 10. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time right here on Pro Wrestling Planet.
Yo, it's your boy JTG, aka Jay the God, one half of the illest tag team ever, Crime Time, and you are watching Pro Wrestling Planet. And we all know Pro Wrestling Planet is about that money. Yeah, that money. Yeah. Cheer.